Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Bracco Foundation for this opportunity, and also I'd like to thank the meeting on positive economy for being such a key reference point also in the university world. What is the circular economy? Now, I'm not going to bore you, and I've just got 10 minutes to explain it. This is a theme which is rather difficult to sum up. You can look at it from many points of view. It would take a whole course to talk about this and many, many hours. But very summarily, by the way, I am a research university person, and therefore, obviously, I have to quote some of the literature. But I'd also like to talk about this sort of the economy in terms of innovation and management and what the opportunities are for the enterprise. Circular economy started from one thing. I don't know whether have you heard about Kenneth Boulding. Kenneth Boulding was a British scholar. He died several years ago, and when I was writing in 1992 my university dissertation, he was one of the few people that really gave and inspired us. Kenneth Boulding developed this fantastic metaphor of the cowboy and the astronaut of the 1960s, as I say. You might have heard of him in the sense that he said our economy was a cowboy economy that could move across the prairies without having to be worried about the waste that he left behind, because resources were without limit. Now, with the industrial development and the population growth, Baldwin said, we have gone from an open to a closed system, and that's the economy of the astronaut living in a spacecraft, and the astronaut has to take into account everything that he does and the consequences. And however, this is not taken into account by our economy, and we act as if we're in an open situation with limitless resources, whereas we're not. In the 1970s, the things have changed, and now we're in a completely changed situation. But the fact still remains that our prevalent model is still considered an open economy, and we see that we can consume resources to increase our GDP. Now, this is based on the idea of take, use, and dispose, and that's still the general idea we have of the economy. I'm out on a limb in terms of a teacher of economics compared to others. I am very much on the ecology limb, and I've done many courses. And ecologists tell us that our system is very interdependent. The circular economy is part of this. It's going back to the linear idea and taking into account the social and ecological consequences of our action. The outcomes, in fact, in a circular economy is not waste, but rather is something that we can use for other means. And a circular economy has become very popular because of two institutions. The Lennon McCarthy Foundation from 2010 has been an international association which brings together scholars and entrepreneurs and companies. And on the other hand, the European Commission and Union, which as of 2014 has used this as an umbrella term to cover many economic activities. So we are now going into this idea of a closed astronaut economic system, and we have to regenerate our resources, in other words. That means that we no longer are in a take, use, and dispose system, but we have a cyclical system where we have to invent uses of what we, in fact, waste. We have to reinvent the company as well. This is not completely new. As I said, in the 1970s, people talked about industrial ecology. There was an MIT review that talked of this. But the idea, in fact, rather remained on academic pages and in the literature rather than getting out into the world. But what we have seen in recent years is a transformation to really make our company more and our economy more circular, to make our companies more sustainable and make them more compliant with the system. And that means changing the business model. In other words, companies, in the light of the data we have collected, have in fact understood sustainability only from a superficial point of view and haven't really understood how this can go to their competitive advantage. And also, there are, however, companies which have developed a completely new approach to the supply chain and had economic results as a result. So the idea of circular economy and sustainability go hand in hand, but it means having a completely different business model. Business model innovation, therefore, is the key to this, and this means upstream, you have to redesign the way in which I generate my product as a company, and I have to extend the confines of my company. Very often a company is just seen in terms of the manufacturer of a product. But now we have understood that we have to go further upstream. We have to go to the crop of which we make the product, or the raw material from which our product comes. If we're H&M or Benetton, it's not just a question of getting more sustainable cotton. I have to go speak to the farmers. I have to go even further upstream. And that means a completely different mindset, because I'm used to buying on the market what I need in terms of raw materials. And again, the consumer has to change. There has to be a take back and from the customer to therefore put it back into the circuit of my production. So if I have material which can once again go back into the cycle, or I can put it into my manufacturing, or I can take back and put it into nature in a different way. Cotton is an example I have given, but I can give very many other examples. So changing my business model means going beyond sales. For example, I no longer sell a product, but I sell a service, and I have to service size. We have international companies, in fact, that are nowadays very careful about this, and they are talking more about selling a service rather than selling a product. For example, and mobility is all important. And then they are more attentive to the waste. Now, new entrepreneurship is required. What does this mean? It means that the huge companies are in fact embedded within their own mindset. And very often innovation comes from new players, the players that are coming onto the market for the first time, the new entries. If we take ITC, for example, if we look at the players of 10 years ago and the players today, we see that the players today are new. They're new entries onto the market. And that means that innovation and new entrepreneurship is two important things to trigger and kickstart a circular economy. And I think that the Bracco Foundation is doing stalwart work to boost new ideas and take the opportunity of growth. but respecting the rules which characterize our planet. In other words, the rules which say that we have to be compatible, resilient, create compatibility vis-à-vis the services that the ecosystem generates. So that, in a nutshell, is a circular economy. I hope I've given you at least a vague idea. Thank you very much for listening to